This is the time of year when everyone claims to know everything, but nobody knows anything. The message boards and Twitters are full of insiders, but the only ones you can trust are right here on the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Josh Newberg, J.D. PicKell riding shotgun with me, and we are less than 1 week from signing day. The energy in the air is palpable. The message board insiders are going crazy right now, and J.D., we're about to bring on the man, the myth himself.
Let's do it.
Chad Simmons. Chad, I want to talk to you about four-star San Diego quarterback Lincoln Keenholz. He flipped from Washington to Ohio State last night. Number 15 QB in the country, 225th best player overall. Does this mean Ohio State is out of the running for Dante Moore? There were some rumors that maybe a last-minute visit to Ohio State. Does this do it for them at quarterback?
Yeah, I would say Ohio State's done at 2023 at quarterback for sure. I mean, obviously the word and the buzz was out there. Dante and Ohio State may have had some communication, may have had a visit potentially this weekend coming up, but nothing was ever confirmed.
Hey, Chad, I'll
there.
audio for you, brother. Try that one more time.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gotcha, baby.
All right.
Live as live gets, baby. Chat one more time. What's the latest with the whole situation with Dante Moore and how this Ohio State situation impacts his recruitment?
Yeah, I think, Ohio State is probably done or really is done in 2023 at quarterback. There was a little bit of chatter behind the scenes potentially about Dante Moore having some communication with Ohio State over the last week and a half, maybe a visit coming last minute. But with this flip, I think Ohio State is done with Dante Moore. Dante Moore is done with Ohio State, if he ever was even entertaining Ohio State. And now the focus becomes between Oregon.
Sorry about that. Oregon and who?
Oregon and UCLA. Definitely, obviously, UCLA had him on campus last weekend for an OV. Oregon's working to get him back on campus this weekend for an unofficial, kind of to secure, lock him in. But UCLA did a great job getting him on campus, showing him a great time, making their pitch to him. And they are considered a threat, but Oregon, they still have some confidence there in Eugene to hang on.
Does he go anywhere this weekend?
They hope, they meaning Dan Lanning, hopes is to Eugene. They have some guys coming in like Jurion Dickey and other commits coming on campus. They hope Dante joins them. Nothing's been confirmed at the timing of this show, but Oregon right now is working to get Dante back on campus.
All right, if you're watching this show right now live, five-star offensive tackle Samson Okunlola has not committed yet. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube later, he's probably already made his announcement. So, Chad, real quick, final thoughts this morning on Samson Okunlola's decision that's expected later this afternoon.
Yeah, Josh, I like where Miami is at. Florida's made a big, strong push here over the last month and a half, getting Okunlola on campus twice for an unofficial and an official. Crystal Ball and Alex Millerball had a great, from what I'm told, in-home visit on Monday, and then Monday night into Tuesday, really the buzz started picking up around the Miami Hurricanes. So right now, late, nothing's ever final in today's recruiting world, but right now I like where Miami sits over Florida, Alabama, and other schools.
All right, we got some more action in the state of Florida. Five-star Florida commitment Andy Jean is making an official visit to FSU this weekend. Now, FSU already has one five-star commitment, Hakeem Williams, and he's going to be on campus as well. Is Florida State in the market to have another big-time flip at the wide receiver position?
They're trying to find that guy next to Hakeem. Like J.D. is running shotgun with you, Josh. They want that guy to run shotgun with Hakeem Williams. They've tried with guys like Jurion Dickey. They tried with Jaylen Brown. Could Andy Jean be that guy? He was in Tallahassee late in November, going back this weekend for an official visit. And FSU gets all the late, time with Andy Jean, with Florida playing in the Las Vegas Bowl. They're out in Las Vegas this week. They had their final in-home last week with Andy Jean. So FSU has the opportunity to try to flip this one late. I think there is a little bit of concern at the University of Florida about Jean getting back to Florida State this weekend, but there also is some confidence that they're able to hang on here. But this business definitely big for Florida State trying to flip Andy Jean from Florida.
Chad, we got some teammates that we're looking at here. 5-star defensive lineman James Smith, 5-star linebacker Quay Rousseau, both trending towards Alabama. Both top 20 players respectively. Everyone's talking about Nick Saban losing the step and Bama's finished this, that, and the other. But if he lands both these guys and Alabama continues to trend upward, likely going to be the top class this year, would this be one of their best defensive classes, even by Crimson Tide standards?
I mean, they're all great. Under Saban the last decade plus, they've been reeling in, if not number one, then likely 2 or 3 classes in the country. But yeah, a lot hinges on this class. They've lost some in-state battles, with guys like Kelby Collins and Peter Woods. So with those guys going to Florida and Clemson respectively, but they've won on Hunter Osborne in-state. I mean, obviously Nick Saban wants to own that state. And this is one of the better years in Alabama in modern recruiting times. I think with their guys like James Smith, Quay Rousseau, the big thing about their storyline right now is that they thought it would be the final visit they took to Alabama last weekend. That was the plan. That's what they thought Sunday night into Monday. Hugh Freeze got an in-home with them yesterday, convinced them as of this morning to take an unofficial trip to Auburn on Saturday to spend the day at Auburn. They've already taken an OV there. They've been there around 10 times. They know all about Auburn University. So now Bama has to kind of hold off the late push by who we've always thought been the biggest competition for Bama, Auburn. Auburn will get them there on campus this weekend for an unofficial. And then the final decision will be made likely on Monday or Tuesday for Rousseau and James Smith.
Man, that was really feeling like a slam dunk for Alabama. It's interesting to see Auburn making a run here, making things interesting. Let me talk about 2 guys that are going to make us wait a day. That's Desmond Ricks, 5-star corner, and also Jordan Hall, 4-star defensive tackle. Both of them have decided that National Signing Day isn't their day. They're going to wait one more day and make their decision the day after. So let's go to Desmond Ricks. He's taking his final official visit to LSU. His final official visit will be to LSU this weekend. And does LSU, who sits kind of in the driver's seat on the RPM, is this their chance to seal it up with Desmond Ricks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously Alabama and Florida, hope they still have a shot. And they're still definitely having communication with Desmond Ricks and his tight circle. But yes, LSU is in a great spot to kind of close the deal with 5-star cornerback Desmond Ricks. He's a guy that I know connects really well with Robert Steeples, Matt House, Brian Kelly, that LSU staff. And there's been some quiet, somewhat growing confidence in Baton Rouge about their chances since he was there late in the season. But again, he had a great trip to Alabama last week. Saban had the in-home last week. Napier and his staff was there last week. He was there 2 weeks ago at the University of Florida. Both visits, I'm told, have been very good. Both schools have laid out their plan and at least given him something to think about and compare to LSU. But I do think LSU has the most confidence and has to feel the best out of the 3 about their chances heading into this weekend.
Who do you got sitting in that 2 spot right now?
I'd go Alabama. I think it comes down to those 2 schools. Obviously, he's from Virginia. The family's moved down to Florida when he moved to IMG Academy. But I think the 2 technically, quote-unquote, out-of-state schools, Alabama and LSU, ride 1-2 right now late.
All right. Let's talk about 4-star defensive tackle Jordan Hall. He took a visit to Georgia last weekend. Is he going anywhere this weekend?
That's not the plan. Jordan's done. I think Jordan's done with visits. I think Jordan's done with in-home visits as well. He's had, I think, LSU, Alabama, and Georgia in already this week. Florida being in Las Vegas. They came in late last week to do their final in-home. So I think Jordan's done. I think Jordan's going to sit home. I would say maybe try to have a little bit of fun and play with the fans' minds a little bit. But, we've talked about Alabama being a big competitor. We've talked about, obviously, Georgia and Florida. Mm-hmm. I think based on what I'm getting as far as the intel goes, it's coming down to Florida and Georgia. One interesting statement Hall made a week and a half or so ago coming off that trip to Florida was that he made his final decision, on or right after that trip to Florida. What does that mean? And the way I read it is he was going into that trip favoring Georgia, gave Florida their shot to compete with Georgia, compared them to Georgia, but in my opinion, still feels that Georgia is the best place for him coming out of that trip. We'll see if I'm right there. We have a week really a week right now from
Week to
Jordan
the
Hall's
day.
announcement on the 22nd. But maybe Ricks or Hall will maybe one up the other and go on the 23rd to have their own day. We'll see what happens between now and then. But right now, I think Georgia's in the best spot for Jordan Hall, with Florida running a close second.
All right. Thanks for checking in with us, Chad. Do you have a big weekend ahead of you?
Well, a big weekend tracking news. I was trying to get down to Florida for state championship games, have some personal things going on. Obviously, a lot happening in the recruiting world as well. Going to stay put, work the phones at home, and do that best I can for On3 next week.
All right, Chad. We'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks for checking in with us.
Appreciate it, Chad.
Sam is not here today.
Busy man.
Sam is flying to Dallas for the high school state finals. But we need to talk about a few guys in his territory that could have a major impact on how the top 10 rankings shape up. Starting at so in the top 5, I feel like Alabama is pretty much set, right?
Yep,
you got Alabama with an outstanding class with a pair of 5 stars still on the board that they could land. Georgia pretty much set at number 2. Ohio State has moved into 3, bumping Notre Dame from 4. Then you go LSU, Texas, Miami, Tennessee, Florida, and Oklahoma. You also have Oregon sitting at 13. Now, I don't think we're going to see a major shakeup in that top 2, but I think the rest is kind of up for grabs.
And you and I were speaking before we got on air. You're like, hey, there's a couple of guys here that could throw this whole rankings into a loop on signing day. Who are those dominoes that could fall on NSD?
Man, the 3 guys that I think could shake up the top 10 are 5-star Peyton Bowen, 5-star David Hicks, and 5-star Anthony Hill. Now, the way that this could shake out is, let's start with Peyton Bowen, right? Peyton Bowen is committed to Notre Dame. They sit in the 4th spot. If Notre Dame is able to hold on to Peyton Bowen, which very well might happen, I think they lock themselves in the top 5. It's significant if they lose him, though, because I don't see enough firepower on their board to keep them in the top 5. I think they drop out of the top 5 if they lose Peyton Bowen. Now, Oklahoma's making a run at him, A&M's making a run at him, but Notre Dame holding strong, trying to keep their prized 5-star commitment intact. All right, then you got Texas and Oklahoma sitting at 6 and 8. This is where it gets interesting.
The Red River.
Because David Hicks is the #1 defensive lineman in America, and he is committed to Texas A&M. He's currently committed to Texas A&M.
Keywords, currently.
But the O's are coming. Oregon and Oklahoma are hoping for a 5-star National Signing Day flip of David Hicks. That could throw the balance of power off, especially with the next guy that I'm going to talk about, 5-star linebacker Anthony Hill. He was previously committed to Texas A&M for quite a long time. He decommitted about a month ago, and this weekend he's set to show up in Austin.
Big visit.
So unlike David Hicks, who's going to A&M, and they're going to have a shot at solidifying him, although Anthony Hill says that he's still considering Texas A&M, I think if he shows up in Austin this weekend, that's all you need to know. I think that the Texas Longhorns will have a very good shot to jump into the top 5 if they can land any combination of Anthony Hill, David Hicks, Peyton Bowen. Any of these Texas 5-stars could shake up the entire top 10. It's pretty incredible.
You get a 5-star combo, extra sauce, you elevate your class, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
If you order that, you're in good shape.
Yeah, just keep pouring that extra 5-star sauce onto it,
Beautiful.
and it'll all work out.
Beautiful.
All right, let's make a move. Let's pivot to Director of Rankings and Scouting for On3, Charles Power. I want to ask Charles about the new Ohio State QB commitment, Lincoln Keenholz, the #8 quarterback prospect in the country, number 116 overall. He was committed to Washington for the entire season, but Ryan Day and Ohio State never let up. What have you seen on film, Charles, from Keenholz that makes him such a coveted prospect for a big-time program like Ohio State?
Yeah, Lincoln Keenholz is really one of the more interesting stories at quarterback, I think, in this cycle. Josh, everybody's kind of dubbed the 2023 quarterback cycle as, or the 2023 cycle in general as like the year of the quarterback. We have all these high-profile names. Honestly, like I would probably amend that and say it's the year of the quarterback riser to me. There's a lot of guys who had massive senior years. Lincoln Keenholz is maybe the best example of that. He's out there playing in South Dakota, so it is, a little difficult to kind of gauge the competition. And we actually got a tip on him, I would say in the spring, of colleges that were recruiting him, saying he was the most underrated quarterback in the country. So course, I hear that, and the alarm bell started to go off, and like I need to kind of dig into this guy. And then kind of started watching him. We watched, I think, almost all of his early games for sure, like before we did our rankings in like the first month of the season, and just very accurate. I think he's the most productive quarterback in the cycle. Now he's not playing the strongest competition, but his production outpaces everyone like significantly. Like I think he averaged like 5.8 touchdowns a game, 404 yards a game. He has like of all the quarterbacks in the on 300. He averages 110 yards per game more than the next guy.
Wow.
So, like, over a touchdown and a half more per game than the next guy. He had 70 touchdowns in 12 games this year, leading his team to a state title. So, unbelievable. And you watch him play. He's accurate, can change arm angles. He's an extremely good athlete. I think he may have the strongest athletic profile of all the quarterbacks in this cycle. He's all-state in 3 sports. He has a Division I basketball offer. You can see that kind of playmaking ability transfer to the field. And there's certain things we don't really know for sure, like in terms of just the competition level, some of the throws he has to make. And we just don't have quite the level of exposure to Lincoln Keenholz, maybe that we do with guys that are in the Elite 11. But, man, like you just look at the profile outside of the competition. He checks every box. And it makes sense why a school like Ohio State, with a Dylan Raiola, who is a very like known commodity in 2024 committed, can kind of roll the dice on a guy like Lincoln Keenholz, who has a lot of upside. And I honestly wouldn't be shocked if we look up and he's a guy who's starting at Ohio State if he adjusts to the level of play. But there's a little more of a degree of unknown with his projection. But we're obviously really high on him, and we've had him in the on 300 for several months, and he's he continued to move up in our last update. So really just a really interesting story for sure.
Of course, you're on it. I want to switch gears a little bit. This show has a ton of 2023 flair to it, but we have to talk about a recent 2024 commitment to Ohio State. It was actually last night, like 12 hours ago. Mm-hmm. But 5-star wide receiver Jeremiah Smith committed to Ohio State yesterday. He's not just any wide receiver. He's the #1 wide receiver in the 24 class, and he's the #2 overall player. So I got to ask you, what is he going to bring to the Ohio State Buckeye wide receiving corps?
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith is really like if you built an Ohio State receiver in a lab, that's kind of what he brings to the table. He is big, extremely technical with his route running, and has a catch radius. I think that combination is probably as strong as we have seen of any high school receiver currently. Like in terms of the 23, 24, and 25 cycles, he is like a pure X outside receiver. Can stack corners off the line. Really, probably reminds you a decent bit of Marvin Harrison Jr., who might be the best draft prospected receiver in college football. So he is. I think he was like a 1A target for Brian Hartline, who recruits the position the best out of anybody in the country right now. It would make sense. Actually, Josh, it kind of reminds me, that's funny you said that, it kind of reminds me of when Zachariah Branch committed last year, like around Christmas. We're all, like looking at
Yeah, knee deep in the current class.
Yeah,
we're this huge commitment.
Yeah, we're like kind of recovering from signing day, and this guy pops, and we're like, we have to talk about this because he's the next big name in the upcoming cycle. So, yeah, I mean, Jeremiah Smith, like you watch his film and it's very exciting with kind of the stuff he can do at such a young age. So you kind of project it out. He's a guy who I think will play early, play as a freshman at Ohio State for sure.
Charles, another guy that committed yesterday from the 2023 class, 4-star linebacker Arian Carter out of Smyrna High School in Tennessee. Decided he wants to stay home, be involved, but he's a guy that didn't really pop on the national radar until around September, which is relatively uncommon for those that don't know. What goes into that kind of ascension for a player like Arian, obviously ended up at a school like Tennessee?
Yeah, I think it really just was him getting a couple games of video together. I remember like where I was when Chad Simmons called me. It's like, hey, you need to watch this guy. He's blowing up. He's about to get the whole SEC's about to offer him. So of course I fired up the video, and yeah, I mean did not take long to see that this guy is an SEC level recruit, 4-star. I think it was actually like the weekend before we put out our rankings update in September. So I was like, all right, yeah, quick 4-star call on him. But I think like when you look at Arian Carter, it's just on defense, it's the play speed, level of physicality. He is a striker. Runs really well, runs sideline to sideline, flows downhill, just makes a lot of plays. And then I think one thing we love and I'm sure colleges love too, is when you look at the linebacker position, there's a pretty high incidence of top linebackers who also play on offense. It's really, linebackers really kind of become an athlete position, and Arian Carter is a very good high school running back. I mean, he probably could play like running back at a lower level in college, like a G5 like running back style. But I think he ran for like 1,100 yards this year. So playing both sides of the ball, 1,100 yards, around 20 touchdowns, and over 8 tackles a game. He's not coming off the field. So that's a pure football player, along with just his physical ability. So
it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah,
Absolutely
yeah.
stupid.
So I think we'll get to see him in person at the All-American Bowl in January. But it like just flipping on the video and seeing that those first couple games, I think is really what spurred the interest. And I mean, it's all the signs are it appears to be merited for sure.
And Charles, is it something where a guy like that just gets in the right position on his high school team and gets more tape at linebacker, or is it like, hey, from junior to senior year, he just eats his Wheaties, develops a ton physically, and is just that guy when he steps on the field his senior year? Like, what's the estimation in your mind there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think opportunity is certainly huge, but also I think we always have to remember we're looking at 16, 17, 18-year-old young men who a lot of times they develop at different rates, and the light might flip on. I think a lot of times you see guys their senior year, they realize, okay, I can dominate these high school players I'm going up against, and the light flips. So he was committed to Memphis. It's not like he was completely out of nowhere, but I think the first couple games of his senior year were revelatory, and I think just like the light flip switch. So yeah, I mean, it was very interesting to watch. It's not something we see every day, but I think if we were to look back at this cycle, he's probably the best example of a senior year riser, a guy who just kind of blew up, the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, Arian Carter staying home, playing for Tennessee. Charles Power, thanks for dropping in with us. Check back in on Monday. We could use you here on the Inside Scoop. See ya. All right.
I hope I'm still developing, like Charles was saying with Arian Carter. I hope I'm also still physically gonna reach my peak here soon.
You could always grow into a whole other
Fingers
position.
crossed. Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully so.
We did our first live show.
Yep.
It wasn't perfect.
Never is.
But we did learn some great things. I'm excited for signing day. Here we are. We're going to do a couple more shows before signing day. But, I mean, the news about Dante Moore is huge. To see if he shows up anywhere. That wasn't a guy that I really thought that we'd be talking about 5 days before signing day flipping. I think Kenny Dillingham leaving obviously opened the door for that idea. UCLA looks like the biggest threat to Oregon, but see where he shows up this weekend, because I think Dan Lanning is going to do his best to get him in Eugene and try to solidify that commitment. But this is the run to signing day, and anything can happen.
Like Chad said, if he shows up in Eugene, all bets are off. If he's somewhere else, then we're watching that all the way down to the wire until pen meets paper.
Yep.
Exactly right.
And we'll continue to watch that top 10 develop. It's a lot of moving and shaking. It's a big game of musical chairs. There's a lot of teams that want to finish in that top 10 that might not. We're just going to have to see how it all shakes out.
To comp it to the NFL draft for college football fans, it's like everybody's on the clock at the exact same time, and everybody has a pick, and you just got to hope and pray that come signing day, your guy puts his pen to the paper, and you end up getting your guys.
So 5 days out, shout out to all the recruitniks that are hanging on every word of Chad Simmons. You guys are the real heroes in all of this. Stay strong. It's going to be a crazy roller coaster ride to signing day. For J.D. PicKell, I'm Josh Newberg. This is the Inside Scoop. We are out.